Okay. Oh, no, we're doing it in there. I think we should all be live. Welcome, everybody. Christina here from Authentic Action Coaching. Today, we're having another beautiful conversation on the How Change Changes You podcast. All live, all flowing conversation about navigating change. As ever, it's my hope that these conversations meet you where you're at. And through these conversations, inspire you to see change differently and to maybe embrace some challenges that you're facing and see it more as an opportunity as opposed to, a challenge that's happening to you. That's what we're going to try and do today. And I'm really excited to be speaking with the lovely Florina today. How are you, Florina?
Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for having me here today. I know I'm feeling really good. Weather is
Good.
good, so that makes me feel good.
Yeah, always works. That always works. So I met Florina in Greece, in Ikaria, to be specific. I was doing a month-long breathwork certification, and Florina was there on tantric training, weren't you? But we did some classes together to explore breathwork and tantric traditions, some of which we will probably touch on today. Florina and I definitely have this love of the mind-body connection, also something that we're going to be talking about today. So yeah, I'm sure Florina's story will resonate with many of you. As ever, sometimes when we go through a lot of life challenges, things can be thrown at us that make us look at life differently and maybe make some different decisions. So, Florina, would you like to introduce your lovely self and tell the people where you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, so I'm based in Brussels at the moment. I lived a bit all over Europe, but for the past couple of years, I've been based in Belgium working here. And I am a holistic life coach. So, as Christina mentioned, we met when she was doing a breathwork facilitator course, and I was doing a Tantra facilitator course because along my journey, I realized that, okay, working with the mind is great, but I wanted to learn something that would put me more in touch with my body, to embody more of the philosophies that I already learned and adhere to. So it was a very interesting mix of classes that we had together. And of course, since then, my practice has evolved, but I still keep that kind of, connection, mind, body, and soul in my practice because, yeah, it's just something I live by.
Absolutely. No, thank you for sharing that. And this journey, as you're going to share, Florina, specifically, you speak about how this interest you had in mind-body connection kind of started relatively young for you. And I think it's a beautiful illustration of how we can be interested in something and start to explore it, and then kind of life happens. And then sometimes we can kind of lose touch with that, right?
I mean, that was totally my case. So I've always been interested in mindfulness, yoga, these kind of things. So I've been at it for, over 12 years. But you know how it goes. You go to university, you study whatever, then you set your mind on some goals. For me, it was to become an international corporate lawyer. And then that really took all my focus and energy. And over the years, I kind of stopped doing all the stuff that I enjoyed, like, for example, dancing. I love dancing. But when I got into the corporate environment, I was just so sucked in that at one point I just stopped doing everything that I was enjoying, like all the fun stuff. So there was a complete disconnection between, my career goals at the time
Mm.
and who I was as a human being outside of work. I completely lost contact with my body and the person that I am. So yeah, it's been a journey.
Yeah. So looking back at that time, when you had that connection and life was all flowy, what was the lead up to? I mean, I know you shared before we went on live that you got up to a point where you were working 70-hour weeks. Like it was a lot, right? How did that how did you get there? Like looking back, how did it kind of creep up on you?
Wow, sometimes life just flows. It wasn't like I was looking for it. So
No.
my aim was, look, I'm coming from a small town in Romania, and I moved to London to study, and I had this dream of becoming an international lawyer. So I studied European law. I studied in London and in Paris, and Bruges in Belgium. So my idea was, oh, it's so fancy to become an international corporate lawyer, right? So I did everything to achieve that. But of course, once you get in, you experience the reality of things, because when you're in university, nobody tells you, sure, do this, but then you're not going to have a life, you know? And
Yeah.
then kind of like flow that way. And then, of course, you do the internships, and then you get the dream job. And the job itself, it was super interesting, very intellectually stimulating, but you get really kind of sucked in because everything is urgent, everything is important, everything is on a scale that you couldn't imagine, because of course we're talking about international transactions. So part of it was also my fault, because you know let's say I was blindsided because I was just so focused on the goal,
Mm-hmm.
I disconnected from myself. So, of course, in a work environment, the manager's job is to give you work, but it's also your job to learn to say no. And that's something I didn't do. I was just jumping. If the boss would say jump, I would say how high.
I know
So
that word very well.
that's how I got to 70-hour weeks. And the standard for us was like 50, 60 hours, and worst case scenario 70. So it's just how these kind of things work, and that was my normality, and I wasn't
Mm.
questioning it because everybody was doing it, and being super young, fresh from university, very excited to impress people.
Mm-hmm.
So I got sucked in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, it resonates so much what you say, because, we're kind of fresh blood at that point, I think. I had a similar experience, but more in advertising agency, where it was just very high paced, lots of work. But as you mentioned, intellectually stimulating, very interesting, very like, oh, finally I'm here and I'm doing all the things. And it feels in lots of ways great. And I think that's part of this kind of draw in, as you
Yeah,
say. And then you just start to little bit by little bit prioritizing this goal over everything else. And it does creep up on you. You don't realize it when you're in it. And exactly what you say, you're surrounded by everybody else doing it. So you especially don't question it, because you're like, well, this is normal. Everybody's doing it. And I'm just joining in.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that was totally my case, because I had never imagined I'm not going to have a life outside of my job. I just thought, I go to work, and then I go and do my fun stuff like, drawing or dancing or all the other activities that I enjoy doing. But then, you end up joining and you realize reality is not the way you imagined it. And then it's a big step to actually acknowledge,
Mm.
because for a long time, I didn't even realize I was stuck in it, Just
Yeah.
that realization of,
Yeah.
hold on a second, I stopped doing all the stuff that bring me joy in life. I kind of lost friendships, connections. My connections with people in general were not great
Mm.
because I never had time.
Mm. Mhm.
Connection to my body was completely lost because I stopped dancing, stopped going to the gym, basically stopped everything.
Mm.
Um, and the tricky part was I didn't realize I was doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, totally. Again, which is so why we're talking about the mind body connection and how we can live in here and disconnect from here. What was your experience of, obviously you had that realization of, you were just, the train was on the track and you were on and you were moving and you were going and you're like, what? I'm the dopamine, and I was hitting all of these results, and yeah, and it was great. When did it start to tell you? What was the signaling system
Yeah.
that started to maybe go, is this healthy?
So, I mean, there were a few signs, but it took me a while to get it because, I was a bit stubborn. You know how it is.
Oh, I
Um,
do.
Headaches, So I was starting to have headaches, and I was taking a lot of painkillers and like a lot of sugar to kind of be able to keep up with the
Mm.
headache.
Yeah.
Then, of course, life events started happening, and I couldn't be present. And then I was starting to have like, regrets,
Yeah.
not being able to attend things. But also, my body started to break down a little bit in the sense
Mm.
that, having stomach problems like stomach ulcers.
Yeah. Wow.
So, when I reached the level of the stomach ulcer, so first it was just like general body fatigue,
Yes.
headache, I would forget to eat and all these things.
Yeah.
But mainly, at the weekends, if I had a weekend, I
If
had
you
no,
did. Yeah.
I had no energy to do anything, just simply
Mm.
body ache and general fatigue. And then, of course, it just kept on piling until I got the stomach ulcers. And then I was like, okay, this is a bit much, because I ended up in the hospital, and they told
Wow.
me, oh, you have a stomach ulcer. How come you're so young? What's happening? Um,
Wow.
I had no idea this could happen to me. And then, of course, other physical problems. So it all kind of piled up. And then I thought, oh my God, I'm too young to be crashing. So
Mm.
I had to take time. I had to take time for myself and really, first of all, take care of my body. So that was the first thing I did. And once I was on the mend, then I started thinking, okay, what next?
Yeah.
But initially, really, I had to reconnect with my body, because my body was literally screaming at me, okay,
Screaming at
you
you.
need to stop now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Thank you for sharing that. And I think anyone listening, I think of years ago in similar situations when you say your body's screaming at you, and because we don't get taught this stuff, we don't connect the kind of the mental stress and strain of everything and then how it shows up physically.
Yeah.
And I think, where we very much connect on the breath and movement of everything is energy. And it stands to reason that if you are working to the point where you are not balancing your other needs, that your body knows that it's out of homeostasis, it's out of that balance. And so naturally then, what is it going to do? Well, it's going to send you a headache. That's a signal. It's going to send you this. That's a signal. And similarly to me, I'd be like, I haven't got time for that. I'll just, take a painkiller. I haven't got time for that. I'll just, because we keep this life that we've created. And to your point, it's really confronting to start to question, what am I doing? Is this right? And I think, unfortunately, for many of us, right, definitely me included, it's those signals get louder, bigger until they just take you out. It's almost like your body is sending you a message to say, right, she's still not listening. So let's create an ulcer and then that'll stop her. Because she's not listened to any other signal we've sent her. So yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that for me was a massive life
Yeah, I'm surprised.
lesson, because I didn't think about this connection, mind and body and
Mm,
soul, because I was just so focused on the mind and the intellectual aspect of my work, and it was all so exciting. I
mm.
completely ignored the rest of me. Uh, but of course, that was a stepping stone in my kind of growth journey, because now, for example, I meditate and I'm so much in contact with my body. So the moment I see the signals, I
Mm.
know to stop. I know to stop, and then I question myself. Not question myself, I do some self
No.
inquiry in a compassionate way, like, okay, what is going on here that my body is starting to send me small signals? So, not
Mm.
questioning in the sense that, being harsh on myself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
no. I learned
Yeah.
compassion, let's say, the hard way. Yeah, because before I was so in this kind of go, go, go mentality, there was no space for compassion.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was again another big big lesson for me. Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing you raise as well, Florina, because and I'm sure you have a lot of conversations with people you coach as well. It's all very well, and we hear on social media, be more self-compassionate, be more da 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 da. And then a lot of people kind of go, yeah, but how? How do you do that actually? So if somebody's listening to that and going, I'm really glad you've asked the how question, what would you say? Like, why, for you personally, how did you go from, I haven't got time for self-compassion, to then getting to the place of, oh, that's what it is? Like, how would you describe that time?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Because at first I had this idea of myself, oh my God, I'm crashing, I'm weak, what's wrong with you?
Mm,
So I was kind of beating myself up about it. But then once I started to accept my humanity, that's when I started to have compassion with myself. But of course, it was a
yeah.
process, and it's a continuous process that you have to do with yourself. And something
Yes.
that was very important for me is that sometimes in the moment, you're simply just not capable of doing it. So what
Mm,
I do is I just distance myself a little bit from the situation.
yes.
I just say to myself, okay, this is what it is. I'm doing my best in this scenario,
Mm,
and not trying to learn the lesson, not trying to fix it then and there when I'm triggered or I'm not in the right frame of mind.
yeah.
And that in itself is compassion because I'm allowing myself the space to, let's say, calm down, to take that breather that I need to be able to look at the situation with compassion.
Mm,
And then once I've calmed down, then I'm able to think more clearly and take a more compassionate view. Because if I'm, let's say, in a triggered situation, then of course, the mind will say, no, you have to make it now and do it perfect and all these things. That's not
yeah.
compassionate. That's just putting pressure on myself. And I'm not always able to be compassionate on the spot. So my
Mm,
trick is to stop if I can, stop whatever I'm doing and allow it to happen and just acknowledge that I'm human,
mhm,
try to do my best. And even if,
mhm.
let's say, I didn't do my best, think about the lesson I can take for next time. Okay, this time I couldn't do it. It is what it is. It's not great. I take
Mm,
responsibility for myself, of course.
mm, mm, mm.
But next time I'm going to do it this way. So those are my little kind of tricks as to how I do it. It's not easy.
No,
uh,
and listening to you, I think I love the way you describe it, and it resonates with me a lot because, to your point, in fact, I had a situation recently where I got quite triggered, and you can know a lot of this stuff conceptually, but I think when you are in a place of self-judgment, i.e., you are, oh, I've done it again, like, oh, and a lot of the time, your emotional state, you can very easily get this biochemical rush where you're flooded. You're totally flooded. And so you cannot see the woods from the trees. And that's why I love what you say. And this is definitely a practice I've had. If I feel, and specifically, if I feel heat in the body, if I feel like a pain in my stomach or a chest pain often, or I start to feel myself getting constricted, which,
yeah,
shoulders up towards the ears, like all of like clenched jaw, those again are embodied practices. And the more you kind of go, oh, so you're almost kind of a bit of a scanning, which is very hard to do in the moment when you're flooded, right? But actually, it is to be able to give yourself the grace and space to kind of say, oh, I'm triggered right now. Like something's happening. And to be able to kind of go, well, that's okay, But I think we're so used to it. Something else that came up for me when you were describing it, and especially going from the transition of being a hyperachiever, if that's what we want to call it, where we're used to operating at a fast speed all of the time. Whereas actually, I think the challenge with self-compassion is the ability to slow down. And
yeah,
I think when you're used to going at such a high speed, slow feels not good initially.
yeah. No, no, I relate so much. I mean, slow for me was just a foreign concept,
Yeah.
because I was always just, on speed, uh,
Hmm.
quick, quick, always. But then when I was forced to stop because of my stomach ulcers, and I was having ovarian cysts as well, like, my whole body
Hmm.
was basically
Wow.
not well. So I mean, I had no choice. and I had to stop, and everything was so slow. At the beginning, I thought I was malfunctioning. You know? I was like, oh my God, my brain is never going to work again. But actually, once you relearn a different
Mm,
rhythm, because that's what happened, I had to relearn, rewire
yes.
myself to
Yeah.
have a slower rhythm and to listen
Yes.
to my body. Just like you said, the chest pains, the shoulder pains, the muscle in the, my legs, the muscles in my legs would hurt sometimes. So learning to listen to those signs and then to
Mm.
stop. Sometimes I still go fast in life if I
Oh
have to.
yeah.
There's no question that you can't. But
No.
it's just listening to those signs and then stopping or
Mm.
taking a break to make sure that everything is going fine. You know, I,
Yeah.
I'm not saying, now everything has to be slow. No,
No.
everybody has their own pace, right?
Yeah. No, exactly. No, I love that. I think I came across a saying a while ago, and I still use it today, which is sometimes you've got to slow down to speed up. Like,
Love
if
that.
we drove around in our cars at 90 miles an hour everywhere, like there would be carnage and chaos. Like,
Absolutely.
there are gates in your car because there are certain parts of your life where it requires you to slow down and sometimes to stop and get out of your vehicle
Yeah,
to take a break. And then other times where you can speed off. But I think we get locked into this way of being, and then we attach our identity to it. And then our success is attached to it, our value, our worth in the world. And then suddenly you kind of think, well, I'm weak if I stop, which is crazy, isn't it? Like, but that is definitely something I used to think.
yeah, absolutely. Me too. And then another thing that you're saying about this, stopping and going faster and all that is just it takes me to the thought of as women, right? Like we have the monthly cycle as well, and the energy fluctuates according to that. And there's
Yes.
literally nothing you can do about it. It's just our body's way of being, and you have to take that into account. But
Yeah.
previously, I wasn't. I was just pumping up painkillers, but it
Yeah.
didn't make me more efficient. I was just pushing myself. Um,
No.
yeah,
No.
that's what it made me think of.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting you bring up the cycle. I only just this weekend, I have been revisiting cycle syncing,
Oh,
and kind of looking at, hold on, I'm expecting myself to be going at full speed when I have my menstrual cycle. What? Am I crazy?
yeah,
Just again, giving yourself the wherewithal and the compassion to kind of go, no, my body is actually going through a cycle where I need to take my foot off the accelerator, allow it to do what it needs to do, so that I can then have the energy, in the next bit of my cycle. So I'm working with it, not against it. But I think this is kind of what we've all created in this hustle way of being, that we always need to be on. We always need to be at full pelt. You can't stop. And because anything other than that is weakness, when it's coming back to more ancient ways of being, which is to work with your body and to allow it to do what it needs to do. So you're kind of symbiotically working with it rather than against it.
absolutely. Because the more you push your body, and this I know from experience,
Mm,
the sooner it's gonna crash, right? But if you work with it, if you actually see that the body is not working against you, it's actually working with you,
yeah.
then you create this symbiotic relationship that you just mentioned, and then you're
Mm,
able to actually create more abundance in your life and
yeah.
flourish. I noticed myself flourishing since I started listening to my body more.
Mm,
Some people might think I'm crazy, but no, I really do take into account even sometimes decision making. If I'm that in that period of the month, and I have PMS
mm,
as well.
mm.
It's kind of private, but we are women. We have these
Yes,
things.
but it's
Um,
reality. Mm,
I'm learning to work with it, and if I know that my emotions are running a bit high, I'll just accept it. Okay, my emotions are running a bit high now. Maybe I'll go to the gym to release some tension, and maybe then
mhm,
I'm gonna take a decision.
mm.
But
Yeah, no.
it's fascinating once you learn to work with your body and not to push it.
Yes. Yeah, because we're not machines. And I think interestingly, what we're seeing with a lot of talk around neurodiversity and like learning how your brain and body works, then suddenly you kind of go, so this kind of industrial revolution way of operating, i.e., we're just a machine where you just tighten everything up and away you go. Actually, it is to bring another phrase I say to myself a lot as a reminder is, instead of the judgment part of like, oh, you're not good enough, why can't you, like, instead kind of go, hold on, what if I was to bring compassionate curiosity to this? Like, if a small child was hurting and screaming out, I mean, the chances are, I would hope most people listening would go, well, you would go over and nurture and find out what was wrong. And then, slowly be with that child, to get it back up and running, to be comfortable and loved and nurtured. And we just don't do that to ourselves naturally. We think that berating ourselves is somehow better than being that compassionate, curious, self, to kind of go, well, let's actually look inside and kind of start to identify, am I expecting maybe a little bit too much from myself right now?
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem. We just have such high expectations of ourselves. But if the same situation would happen to someone dear to us, or, to people that we're coaching, for example, we would always be more compassionate. And like you say, sometimes I try to apply this to myself. Okay, if this would happen to a friend, what would I tell them? How would I react to their situation? Okay, why am I not reacting to myself the same? Because I put myself and I hold myself to higher standards that sometimes are just maybe not realistic.
Yeah,
and that
no,
itself is a big lesson.
it is. And to your point, I think one that is ever evolving, and we can default back to old patterns again, and that's okay too. Like, I constantly find myself like, oh, I thought I dealt with this, I thought I'd learned from this, and here we are again. But I think, depending sometimes what life throws at you, it's going to kind of challenge you in that way. And I think it's back to what you said before about being able to just give yourself that space, that reflection time, to kind of just go, right, is this helping me right now? The way I'm speaking to myself and what I'm pushing myself, what is my body cues telling me? And what can I do that's gonna make me feel more grounded and more whole, and less being kind of activated up there through stress, right? Because we know that stress hormones, cortisol, when we are living in that flooded state all of the time, that is corrosive to our cells. Like, we are kind of cooking in stress juice, for want of a better term.
Oh, I relate, trust me, because once, so I was in this kind of high stress juice cooking myself. Then I would stop, I would completely crash, but completely crash, as if a truck hit me. So it's real. This is real, but unless you start working with yourself and with the awareness,
Yes.
you're just not gonna know. You hear people saying a lot, "Oh, I don't know. Every time when I go on holiday, I get sick. I wonder why." Well, I wonder why as well.
Yeah, let's look at that. No, that's a really good example, actually, because that is a common thing, isn't it? Like, I'm just exhausted, and so your body, because you've come off the stress juice, your body just goes, oh my god, thank god.
Exactly.
And your immune system is affected, of course it is. So for you, Florina, when you started to practice more of this stuff and this realization came upon you, what were some of the practices for you that made the biggest difference in kind of reconnecting your mind with your body?
So there are a few of them, of course, but I think they're very personal to every individual. But one of the most important practices I do is meditation, particularly meditation with breath as well. So just really landing into my body and having this awareness of, oh, it hurts here or it hurts there. Because when you do open meditation and you just noticing your body, you're really learning to connect with your body. So for me, meditation is like the holy grail. meditation and mindfulness, definitely
Yeah.
the holy grail.
Yes.
But the other thing that is really important is also having fun, having activities that help you, come out of your brain into your body and just enjoy and release the happy juices, if you want to call them that
I
way.
like it. Stress juice, happy juice. Yes.
Exactly. So for me, that is dancing. So I
Mm.
absolutely love dancing. I've been dancing all my life, different kind of styles, salsa, bachata, kizomba, Zumba, whatever. It does not matter as long as I'm there with the rhythm and I'm moving and I'm not thinking and I'm just like really enjoying and expressing myself and allowing my body to really release.
Mm.
Yeah, those things. And one of them, of course, is as well Tantra. So that's
Yeah.
something that I've been working on for a while, for a couple of years now.
I definitely want to talk more about that, because as we spoke about earlier, I held this view as well. When people hear the word tantra, they immediately think sex, but it's
Yeah,
not. It's so much more. But I did want to highlight just something that you said. I think, when we're talking about stress juice being adrenaline, cortisol, which, in little spurts, part of who we are, part of what kind of, creates our activated system so that we can do a lot of great stuff. It's great. They're not evil chemicals. What then brings us down is if we stay in them and we starve ourselves of the happy juices. So things like oxytocin, so bonding, connecting with other people, endorphins, getting outside, breathing in some fresh air, communing with nature. There's all of these, that healthy dopamine of actually being able to do something that isn't doom scrolling on your phone. And actually you can stack these cocktail of, happy juice, happy hormones, by going out
yeah,
and actually connecting with people, moving your body, doing something that is purposeful and has an outcome. So you feel like you've, moved through something. They actually are so energy giving. And if we are depleted of them, then yeah, go figure, we're going to be out of balance and then we're going to get ill.
absolutely. And the thing about these things is that they're simply just enjoyable.
Mm,
Nobody says you need to go there out there with a goal. Oh, I need to get my serotonin up, or I need to get my oxytocin up. No, you're just doing things that actually bring you joy and nourish your soul. And this comes,
yes.
of course, to connection with the soul. And the moment you find things that actually bring joy into your life, it's easy to do them. And the
Mhm.
passion comes out and the relaxation, and all of a sudden you feel the weight off your shoulders, and that's the beauty of it, because it's pure joy. there's
Mm.
there's no reason behind it, but of course the result is that it helps you in your life. So for
Yeah,
me, that's just amazing. you know
absolutely. No, I love it. And I think, I keep coming back to the coaching that I do is energy leadership, and it very much talks about, emotions are energy in motion, and we're not supposed to kind of be stagnant. We're not trees. We get to move. And I think, to your point, it is about being able to almost tap into this childhood like wonder and awe that we had when we were young, that we've lost touch with because we've gone into adult mode where everything has to be goal driven, and now we've got to stop having fun because I'm an adult now, and well, I can't be doing that. It's actually being able to invite yourself and give yourself permission to play again, because that is actually that's the pathway to joy. And that's the pathway to all of this other good stuff. So I'm 100% in agreement with you. And I think I did share with you that last year when I found salsa specifically, and I was going through some quite dark grief at the time, that gave me so much healing. Even just the movement, the coordinated movement, the uncoordinated movement, the being with other people, the music, just everything was just, I mean, who knew that salsa dancing was going to help bring me back to life, but it totally did. So I'm a huge advocate for partner dancing specifically.
I really resonate with what you're saying because, as you say, when we grow up, we feel that everything has to be serious and you have to be ambitious and you have to have goals and everything has to be so serious and heavy. And particularly when we do self development as well, when we work on ourselves, we take everything so seriously and everything is so deep. But actually, a lot of the times, the growth and the healing happens when we learn to let go and be in those spaces of selflessness and joy and just being with other people and allowing, like you said, the energy to move. Because when the energy is stuck, that's when you're getting all these stomach ulcers and all these things because you're just piling up all the energy in your body. When you're dancing or you're doing other kind of movement activities, you're moving the energy. You're releasing energy, and that's why I love tantra as well because it's all about energy movement.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people think it's about sex because tantra works a lot with sexual energy. And in tantra, we say life force energy is creative energy because of course we are created through sex, through the act of having sex, right? But it works a lot with moving energy in the body and connecting with the other. So it's not just about the sexual act. It's more about creating this space within ourselves where we move the energy and we don't allow it to get stuck. Because that's what happens when it gets stuck, you get headaches and body pain. Everything is kept in the body. So no wonder when you go salsa or dancing or whatever, and you start moving your body, you're releasing, you're moving the energy.
Yeah, well, 100%. And I love the way you describe that. So for people who've never heard or don't have any clue about what Tantra is as a ancient teaching, you mentioned about life force energy. So obviously things like Kundalini yoga talk a lot about the life force and going through your energy systems. For those who this might be a totally foreign concept, how would you introduce it so people can understand it better?
Yeah. So the way I understand it, the way I learned about it, I've spent a couple of years studying it. Tantra is basically at the base of all yoga practices or Kundalini practices. So Tantra goes back at the origins of working with energy. Yoga came after. Yoga is all based on Tantra. And the core and the root of Tantra and yoga and all these practices is meditation. And it's meditation connecting with your body. Okay, in yoga, they developed all these movements, you stretch, downward dog, all these things to move the energy. In Tantra, it's more, in Tantra, you have different types of practices. Some of them involve sexual practices, but that's just like 5% of Tantra, where, you are with a partner and you connect that way. But a lot of the times you can do Tantra alone because it's basically a meditation connecting with your body, connecting with your sexual energy and your creative energy, and then learning how to move that in your body. So it's not about, oh, what position are we doing today? It's about working with your breath, working with your body, and really gaining very deep understanding and connection with your body. And that's why I really love it because it's one of the most comprehensive methods of mindfulness I found to date, really connecting to the body and learning to listen to all the cues and then learning to move that energy in the body. So that's Tantra for me in a nutshell. But of course, you have different types of Tantras. And then nowadays you have this thing which is called Neo Tantra, which is the Tantra adapted to today's world where you have a lot of new practitioners focusing mainly on the sexual elements. And look, I think it's great because many people have problems in the bedroom or, they're shy or, it's good. It helps people, there are people that actually need it. But the traditional Tantra, it's all about meditation and energy work.
No, I think you described it beautifully. Thank you. I think the other thing that comes up for me, especially you know, I guess they would say more in the westernized society, when we talk about living and working at speed and how distracting that can be. So often it is workaholism is in effect a distraction from what's really going on, or it can be.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time I find, you know, when I take people through meditative practice or more embodied things of slowing down and actually sitting with, again, if you're not used to it, it can feel very unsettling, right? Because you are being with yourself. You're being with all of the sensations and the interoception. So we think of, like, we're very outward looking, aren't we? What's everybody else doing? What's all around me? There's not very much time. And, you know, I think this is where a lot of people go, oh, I tried that and it didn't work. That's why they do call it a practice. Because if you want to, you know, strengthen your bicep, you got to do the reps.
Absolutely.
So this has been my experience also with meditation, and trying lots of different ones. But certainly I have found that adding in breath work plus the meditation actually helps the interoception, because you can really, it is about opening up the space to kind of look in it and kind of, again, be more like, that's interesting. Like, that feels spacious, that feels tight, that feels, but it takes time to be able to develop. And it's a muscle we all have. It's just possibly not exercised and a strong muscle. So the more that we work with it, the more it will become strong. And to your point, that's how we can then become more emotionally fluid. We can learn to master our energy. So then if we do feel like we're going through a tough time, you can respond to what your body's asking you for and not go, shut up, we're going anyway. And actually just work with it and be more, a phrase that I keep coming up with as well is emotionally agile.
Yeah.
To have some agility, to be able to spring into action, but also to calm and to rest and to, like, kind of ride the wave, as opposed to this staccato, I'm up, I'm down, I'm and instead just be more open and, I guess, less controlling. That's the other thing that I wanted to say. With Tantra specifically, it sounds like it's surrendering your need for control, and I think that's where a lot of people have an issue. Would you agree?
I mean, you know, it's the ego, right? It's the concept that we create about ourselves in our head, and then we cannot come out of that box of the ego. And I'm not just talking about the ego in the, you know, mainstream sense of the word. I'm talking about the ego as our identity. And in Tantra, you do look a lot at the ego as well, because as long as the ego is there, there's no way for you to allow yourself to feel and be present with the space that you're creating within yourself. And I really love how you mentioned breath work, because in Tantra as well, you work with the breath a lot. And through that, you create space. You know, you create space between what you're feeling as well and what your egoic mind is telling you. And then you start to realize there's a disconnect. Hold on a second, my mind is saying I should do this, but my body is doing this. What do I do now? But like you rightly mentioned, with practice, then you learn to incorporate all these things in your life. And then you learn not to give so much attention and so much importance to the mind. Not to say that the mind is not good, of course, it helps us a lot. But sometimes it goes crazy.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to turn the volume down on that and turn the volume up of your wisdom that is in your body. Definitely. No, 100%.
Go back to you know, your roots, and go back to the breath, and go back to the body, and, you know, take that space for yourself with compassion, like you mentioned. And then when you're ready, then go back to the mind and find solutions or a way forward. So work with the mind. Just don't allow it to control you. And that was a big one for me.
Yes, the release of control. I do remember recently I gave a talk, and I often start my talks with, what's one thing you can't live without? And I've had various answers when I shout that out to the crowd of whoever I'm speaking to. And there's been a couple of occurrences where somebody shouted out control. So I'm like,
yeah.
we need to talk after after this. Because I think we do shine control, or have to be in control of everything. And I think that can be very stressful for people. And I think to look at the nuance of control is definitely being able to, again, surrender and to allow yourself not to be in control. And that's to trust, right? When we're in control, we're not trusting. We're not trusting ourselves. We're not trusting our bodies. We're not trusting other people. And that's disconnecting.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, that was a big one because I didn't even realize I was so attached to it. You know, I had my goals I had to achieve. There was no discussion of control. No. I knew what I had to do.
Yeah.
And when I realized actually I had to be in control of every situation, it kind of hit me hard, you know, because I thought I was this flexible person and I'm chill, you know. And then when you realize, hold on a second, you kind of like to be in control all the time. Oof, that was a tough lesson to learn.
And I think a lot of us do. And it's a hard lesson to learn. I think, just to your point, when you have these realizations, it's not like, oh well, the rest of your life is a breeze. Because if anything, you have to keep leaning in and keep being kind and kinder, actually, to yourself as you evolve. Because then what happens is, I should know better. I know this stuff. And you know, we're human, to your point. So it is about bringing humanity in.
Absolutely.
So to bring it as a bit of a kind of full circle, when you look back at the time when you were doing those 70 hours weeks and then watching your journey, having come out of that and reconnecting with things that brought you joy, dancing, breathwork, meditation, and tantra, what, over that time, over that change period, what did you learn about yourself?
Oh my goodness, I could write a book. Actually, I'm
I was going to say,
I'm writing a book about it. But I think the most interesting parts were that I was so unconscious of many of the things I was doing on autopilot, like distinct of control, for example, or my ambitions, or my disconnection with my body, simply because I was not aware. Although I thought I was aware, I was simply not aware of myself. And starting doing, you know, the introspections and the meditation, and of course all the work I've been doing on myself, I learned to listen to myself and apply this kind of self-inquiry. Okay, why do I need to be in control now? Or why is my body hurting right now? Or why do I have this urge to do this thing that I know is unhealthy for me? And I think that kind of, you know, mentality, it changed from, oh no, I know what I'm doing and I have this goal and whatever, to also allow the space for, what if different? Where is this coming from? You know, not to be so rigid. I think that was one of the biggest lessons. But my God, so many lessons.
Oh yeah, we'll wait for the book. So the next question I do invite people to answer, as well as kind of all of those lessons about kind of giving yourself the grace and space and relaxing more and allowing yourself to be more out of control and to be more curious and compassionate, and what that meant and what that felt like. What then, as time has gone on, what's strengthened in you by this practice? Like, where do you feel new levels of strength?
I think in all areas of my life, actually. It's not that it just changed one area of my life or strengthened one area of my life. Actually, this letting go of control and doing things slower allowed me to create space and trust myself more. So my self-confidence just went off the roof, you know, without being full of myself, but just being aware. I'm more aware of where I have strong skills and where I need to improve. And just that awareness of, I can do whatever I want. And if I can't do it, that's fine as well. There are other alternatives. And that really became really strong for me. This confidence in myself that regardless what happens, I will find a way. Maybe not plan A like I wanted to, but it's okay. I'm resourceful enough to have plan B, C, D, whatever, and that's okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
love that. I love the way you describe that. It comes up for me of almost this resourceful resilience that you
Yeah,
found, where you're like, you know what? It's probably not going to end up being the way that I foresee it, but I'm open to that. I'm open to the journey. I'm open to, well, let's go on the adventure. Let's find out. Because then it's a co-creation. It's not you being tunnel vision. It's a co-creation of things are going to come in my life that maybe I haven't even thought about. But I'm ready. I'm open. I'm ready to play.
yeah,
And I
that's
think
it.
that's got such effervescent, kind of light, playful energy, but it also has something else. And I very much felt this from you, even like when we met and we used to sit and talk, when we were in Greece. You have this very calm, grounded energy. Like, I know who I am. I've made peace with who I am. And I
Yeah,
think there's a different energy about that than people who are maybe, outwardly confident, borderline, you know, cocky, shall we say, peacocks. Look at my feathers. As opposed to, do you know what? I don't have to show you my feathers. Like, I can sit here with myself and I don't have anything to prove because I know what brings me joy, and I've been to the dark place. I know what that looks like, but I actually practice dancing in the light and to balance both. And I think that's what you beautifully share on your social media, and everything that you talk about within the group work that you do, and that kind of thing. And it's, for me, what I see, Florina, is this embodiment of you are, you're kind of role modeling, you're showing your being, you're teaching through the being of.
yeah.
And I think being open to the fact that we're still, it's never going to be, oh, well, I've arrived, so I'm going to share you my wisdom. It's like, no, I've been on a bit of a journey. Let me show you what I've discovered.
Exactly. No, thank you so much. No, it really means a lot to me that, you're getting those messages to me, because that's exactly it. I am aware of my darkness and my light. I have
Yeah.
accepted it. I'm working through it, navigating, and yeah, trying to make most of my life. And that's my main message to people as well, learning to accept ourselves with compassion and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, to be open to the adventure that is life, right? Because we
Yeah,
can focus on the dark, or we can focus on the light. We've got to have a play for both, because one doesn't exist without the other, right? Unfortunately, or fortunately, it's all part of the adventure.
yeah.
So one last question that I like to end with. So you've covered off kind of your flexibility and your more open playfulness of actually that's strengthened this resourceful resilience that you have. How is that influencing how you're now operating in your life, how you view the future?
I'm a lot more bold in my decision making process. I'm not as stressed about, oh my God, what if everything goes wrong? I'm more hopeful, more optimistic. And because I know I have the resources and the resilience, I mean, I have a track record of 15 years of succeeding whatever I want to succeed in life, with ups and downs and struggles. But in the end, I have done it because I've been living alone abroad for 15 years. So
Mm-hmm.
since I started university. But now I'm not scared anymore. Now I'm a lot bolder in my decisions in life, and it's amazing.
Well,
Yeah,
that's inspiring in itself, Florina. And I think it is back to, you have a vast case of evidence,
yeah,
to actually kind of support this belief. So it's almost, again, of the mind, knowing that, hold on, I've done all of these things over the last 15 years. Like, all of the evidence suggests that I am resilient and resourceful. But then it sounds like also the embodied part is to make peace with, do you know what? The future is unknown, but I'm ready to embrace it all and to welcome it all and to not fear the unknown, but instead invite it in. And I think that is a beautiful place to end this conversation, because this is how we embrace change. We welcome change, because do you know what? It's going to happen whether we like it or not. So it's far better we play with it instead of resisting and pushing against it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you so much. I mean, you really summarized it really well. And I'm so happy we had this chat. It was, I know it's a live, but it really felt like a very nice sharing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Florina. Well, I knew that I wanted to have this conversation with you, because I knew we have a lot of shared common beliefs on things. So thank you again for sharing your story, and I'm sure you have inspired a lot of people. And if hopefully nothing else, we've planted a few seeds for people to kind of think about, and maybe prevented anybody falling off the tracks. But hey, if you do, that's part of your journey. You're going to get back on it again.
Exactly.
We'll make sure that all of your links are in the comment section below. Where can people come and find you?
Well, they can go to my social media, so Mindful Connecting on Instagram or on Facebook, or on my website, which is mindfulconnecting.com. So because this is my concept of mindful connecting, looking at the mind, body, and soul. That's why the name.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you again, and thank you for everybody who's watching. I'm sure Florina would love any connections, comments, questions, and I will catch everybody next week for another Tuesday live. Sorry, another Tuesday live. How change changes you. We do all of the things on social media, but yes, hopefully that has inspired you to look at change a little differently. So Florina, you stay there, and I will end the live and say thank you very much.
Bye. Bye, everyone.